again, thank you all for coming. I'm Josh, and I have this whole world of a belly. The rest of me feels relatively relaxed. My mind feels clear, but pretty much for the last 2 days straight, my belly is like, and I can't remember ever having so much tension here and having my mind be relatively still. It's a huge contrast. And my guess is because I'm presenting publicly something of mine, like something that I've worked on and created in the theory realm. And there's so much in me that wants to do that and loves doing that. And again, it's the first time. So that's as much as I know in terms of the outer shell of what this experience is for me. Yeah, and the summary of that is like anxiety equals something matters to me. I want it to go well. So I have an outline on my phone, and I'm going to be looking at that as I'm doing what I'm doing. So, like I said in the opening, in the big group, I'm going to be doing some theory, some demo, and hopefully a bunch of Q&A. And the backstory for the thing I mostly want to present today is that I've been a course leader here for the last 3 teachers. And when I'm doing teaching with small groups or one-on-one with students, I will often reference this thing that I've called, the channels.
What do you call it?
The channels. The channels. And in terms of reviewing somebody's circle or giving them some coaching about how to circle better, I'll say, well, you were occupying and attending to this channel and this channel and this channel, but did you notice that this one and this one were left blank? And they said, what are you talking about, the channel? And then people will come up to me to break with their journal, tell me that channel thing again, and they'll write it down. So I'm realizing it's not been in the T3 curriculum yet. It will be in the next series. Jess and I are going to be the main course leaders for the next T3. Along with the others, but we'll be the main ones. And so that gives us an opportunity to bring in more of our material and adjust the curriculum. So I found in my experience that it was a valuable addition to understanding circling, and people seem to really appreciate it. And so I thought I wanted to bring it. And again, it's a theoretical framework, but it's very applicable to your circling, and we'll get there in a minute. So circling it's a framework, cognitive framework, and it's a practice, right? And some of us don't like cognitive frameworks, we just want to learn through experience. And some of us, we have experiences and maybe they don't make much sense until we have the cognitive piece, and then to bring it together. So again, the emphasis is going to be today on the cognitive piece. It's not to say, obviously, that if you understand what I say, you're going to go and circle well. This is like it's a structure to reference and to use as a guideline to develop your own circling. And hopefully it's a more organized way to think about all the different components of circling. So before I get into it, I just want to say I have a couple minutes on the title of the talk, just because it's fun for me to talk about that. So originally the title was going to be called The Structure of Circling. And Jess said, nobody's going to come to that. It's not sexy. And I said, okay, how do I make it sexy? And I thought, well, I'll just put the word sexy. And then the tagline came afterwards, how to hit a home run by covering all the bases. So I don't know if you're not from the US, maybe that metaphor doesn't work, but we talk about getting sexual or getting intimate physically with people. We often use a baseball metaphor, like getting to first base, second base, third base, and home run. Do you guys know that? So if you get all the way to home run, it's like you've had sex, you've had intercourse, and
I'm so happy this is happening right now.
you've hit it. And so it's a play on the idea that if you have a solid structure in place, you can really hit a home run. But of course, in circling, there's really nowhere to get except home. So we go out and we run around, and where do we end up? We end up where we started from, at a deeper level of home. So it's a play on that. The other piece I want to say is that obviously you don't need to cover all the bases to lead a good circle. But what I want is for you to leave today understanding that you have options and what the options are, and that you consider working on the places that don't come naturally to you to round out your circle. Most really quality circles have some aspect of most of or all of the channels in them. Okay. All right. We're ready to move on to a little bit of the theory. Okay, there it is.
This is a secret Enneagram training.
Yeah, right?
Non-consensual Enneagram.
All right. I'm going to spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes going over the parts that most of you, if not all of you, are already very familiar with. Just to acknowledge them and name them, and then through contrast, show why this organization is potentially more helpful for some of you, and for sure for me. So, in T3 and other places maybe, we talk a lot about the 7 steps of circling, right? So, who knows the 7 steps of circling? Or is familiar with them? Okay, well, I was going to just have you guys shout it out, but I'll do it. So, when we circle, at least in the interval center model of circling, because there's other forms these days, but we always start by setting context. It's kind of what we're doing, how long we're going to do it, the different roles that we play. And then we spend a little bit of time connecting to self, as led by the leader of the circle, connect to other, we weave shared reality, we iterate, which means returning back to these steps. We close the circle, and then on occasion, especially with new people, we debrief the circle.
I'm sorry, could you say what 4 and 5 are?
4 is weave shared reality. Again, if you're not familiar with circle, I'm not going to be explaining these things.
That's all right. I'm just going to read it.
Okay, weave shared reality and iterate. So we do a lot of teaching about how to do each of these steps, and this one's really big. And yeah.
I just wanted to check in really quick. I know that not everyone in the room, their first language is English, and I'm imagining that debrief might be a weird word, and I just want to make sure everyone's...
I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, debrief. I don't know. And the 5, I can't read it.
Number 5 is iterate. I-T.
I don't know.
Iterate means repeat.
Okay.
So we just go back and do it again.
Okay.
And debrief means talk about what happened
Yeah.
and what we learned from it. Specifically, when you're leading a circle in the interval style, in the interval center style, we'll talk specifically about parts of the circle that were really good and pure examples of circling, and parts where it may have deviated from what we call pure circling. There's also an aspect of circling which has to do with being in the present moment, right? That tends to be our emphasis, present moment interaction. And there's these, this is not channels. I was so excited about my channels, I put it in 2 places. This is 3 levels. So, some of you may have heard this one from Brian Bear. We have the informational level. That's when you and I are talking about anything, something out in the world, or some ideas or something. We have the personal level, which is when I'm talking with Jess and she's telling me about her personal history or something about her life. That's the personal level. And the third level is relational. And that's when we're talking about the present moment, what's happening between us, what I'm noticing as I'm with Jess, what I'm experiencing, all of that. So this is the realm of authentic relating and circling. And I got this little list from Brian Bear. Again, I just want to name him. And the reason I'm including this here is that this is just a good thing to keep in mind, that certainly when people are going informational, whether they're the circlee or members of the circle, just to remember, oh, they're in the informational channel. It's not better or worse or right or wrong, but it's not really what we're aiming for when we're circling, right? And personal, when they're in the personal level, telling you the story of their life, the backstory of the situation, we can go, oh, they're in the personal channel. How can we aim gently towards the relational channel if we're going to be circling? And then the 2 modes, any guesses?
Yeah.
There you go. 2 modes, yin and yang. So those are basically the two ways of being as a circler. Yin being more receptive and more with what's already here, and yang being more outward, more initiating, not going away from here, but going deeper into here. So up to now, this has been some of the format that we've taught circling in, along with all the little techniques that we train. So the 9 channels, some of them have become explicit in the trainings. Most of them are implicit or not clearly structured. So the 9 channels. I'm going to start with the first 3. So, the first 3 channels are the what, the how, and the why. And when I'm circling Jess, there's what she's talking about. There's always content, what she's saying. Do you guys need something?
We're just getting one.
And what are the techniques that go along with the content level? Any of you that circle, when I'm being with Jess around her, what? How do I engage usually when I'm circling? What's the technique? That would be where I'm sort of paraphrasing. I'm being with her content. The main way to do that is to paraphrase, reflect back what she's saying. Or ask questions about what she's saying. Stay. But I'm reflecting at the level of the words that she's using and the content of what she's saying. And then there's the how. And that was my first fun addition to our T3. And it got brought in really strong this past time. So the how is how she's showing up. It's all of the ways that I'm calling it the process. It's the things that it's how she's doing what she's doing. So it has to do with tone of voice, volume of voice, facial features. That no matter what she's saying, she's occurring to say it in a kind of a sad or heavy voice. Or she's really lively, right? So pace, volume, tone, quality, these are all how. Her body language, that's the how. Yeah.
Emotion is more how or what?
If she's saying that she's sad,
That's
it's the what. If she's saying that she's sitting there, if she says, I'm sitting here, how she says I'm sitting here is the how. And what tends to happen is that the what of somebody's experience changes frequently for most human beings. What their attention is on, what they're talking about, what they want to be circled on, all of that. The how that they bring changes less frequently, right? Funny people, they're funny frequently. Sad people, there's a sadness that persists. More, not all the time obviously, but more than the what. So if we can focus on somebody's how, particularly if it's a how that they don't even know they're doing, which is part of circling. It's like, wow, I've been talking in a small voice for the last 20 years and I never knew it. That's their how. Right? So what happens is, as we move from 1 to 2, we go a little deeper in terms of getting their world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sometimes if we focus on the second channel, it doesn't even matter what the person is saying. We could just drown out. It's just like blah blah blah, and all I'm noticing is the way they're looking and the fact that their foot is shaking. And I say, wow, I notice your foot shaking. I imagine there's something happening there. Oh my God, I didn't know I was even doing that. Right? So that's the how. I love working at the level of how. We can get seduced by the what? The story, the plot line, then what happened? Oh wow. And miss the whole fact that somebody's, they're being completely open and vulnerable as they're sharing about it. Or they're being very reluctant and scared about it. Or they're looking like that when you're talking about it. Or they're doing that, or something, right? Those are all examples of the how. The next channel is the why. Oh, and how do we access this normally in circling? What are the techniques? We talk about seems. We say, you seem sad. You seem agitated. You seem like you have a lot of energy in your body. So one way is to use this you seem. I'm not going to hit all the techniques, I'm just going to give examples. And then we have the level of why. Why is somebody doing what they're doing? And oftentimes the word why can sort of shock people, or it feels like an attack or a question or an interrogation. You throw people on the defensive. So we don't usually in circling say the word why. We might say, I'm curious about where that's coming from, or I'm curious about what has you feeling like you want to share that right now. The techniques to what we're accessing there in terms of their why is the belief or motivation that is in their system. And it's another level of going deeper from 2 to 3. So there I am talking about, how my arm feels. My arm feels buzzing. The what is my arm and buzzing. The how might be, guys, my arm is buzzing. And so my how is like urgent or disjointed or demanding of your attention. And then we can ask, And here the techniques are, what we teach is what kind of being? That's the main one. If I ask myself in my mind, what kind of being would want the group to know that my arm is shaking and buzzing? Maybe somebody who cares about their body. Maybe somebody who isn't afraid to ask for help. Maybe somebody who's very aware of their body. So this is all about, what would be motivating that person? Or what kind of belief are they in that gives rise to the how and what?
I totally get what you're saying, but isn't that also about who you're talking to?
Similar.
Because I feel like a lot of the time, if I really are can breathe, I could go directly saying why.
You mean like skipping
Tell me why.
Yes. It's a general guideline not to say why for most people most of the time. But in my world, there's no hard and fast words to use or not use. And there's intent. If you have a gentle why, it may land beautifully with me. Most people, if they use the word why, it will tend to go over defense.
Okay, what I see is then very often then it's like, I want to find someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes. My answer is a big yes. Go for it, use why if it works for you, and just be aware that it may provoke.
But I see that in me, that's very different what I use. Some people I wouldn't even touch the word. With others, it would be like, right.
Because it goes deep, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? That you wouldn't use it?
It's just a flavour of the connection.
Yeah. It sounds to me like there needs to be something in place for you to feel like that is a question that will serve them. And you have a good sense of when that is and when that isn't. Cool.
I was kind of reflecting like, well, oh shit, yeah. I do think I go there.
Yeah. And you did in that circle that I was in with you. And for me it worked beautifully because I felt such care behind the word. I didn't feel judged. Why? Why are you doing that? Kind of a why. It was an invitation to go deeper. That's how it felt to me.
I noticed that when I'm asking why, it asks it in one way, it might send them back into the what.
It could easily send people back into story
Yeah.
or into exactly the what. The what's often where the story is. Well, why do you feel that way? Oh, I feel that way because of my mom, dad, something like that. Yeah, so
Evaluation.
great. These are abstract, and in terms of a contextual usage in an actual circle, they'll be twists and turns. Yeah. So I want to pause here because I've been talking a bunch, and we're doing decent on time. So what's that? Yeah. So I want to do a little demo. So I'm going to circle somebody for a few minutes, and we're going to have a chance to watch out for channels 1, 2, and 3, and see when you can pick them out. So is there anybody here that would enjoy some attention from me in the group? And for me, because I rarely get defensive, which is coming to tomorrow's talk, I like the question why. It's like, oh, thank you. You actually want to know.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So I'm gonna circle Cat for just maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And I want you all to be on the lookout for 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm gonna pause after a few minutes and we'll get shares about when did you see each of them happen. And if you have something to write on, you can write an example. So, does this feel like a good spot for you?
Not really. Yeah, it's not like I feel too much on display this entire.
Cool, so we're not gonna go through the formal steps, certainly. I did set context, I told you what we're doing. And sure, let's do 10 seconds of connect yourself. So I invite you all to close your eyes if you want to. And bring your attention more into your own experience. Just feeling your self, in particular the insides of yourself. After a couple more breaths, bring your attention outward. And just make a momentary contact with some of the people here. Keeping some of your attention with yourself and allowing some of your attention to move out and make contact. And again, still using your own experience in this moment as your reference point, bringing some portion of your attention over to Cat. Hi.
Hi.
You seem somewhat happy, or at least smiling. It's good to hear. Yeah.
I like the ugly part. I feel a little nervous. Yeah, a little bit nervous.
So you like the at least part, the happy part wasn't so true.
I look happy. I do feel happy, but I think I like that you saw through it.
And so the more that I can see, if I see through, is the nervousness.
Yeah.
And when I asked you that, I saw you look up as if you were checking something.
Yeah. I don't know, but I can't. I think I'm trying not to talk too much.
So I imagine that you're aware of your impact on other people.
Yeah. Maybe too aware.
And that sometimes you adjust your behavior because of that awareness. And as you're answering me right now, it seems like there's a softness or tenderness
the sadness, the truth reflected, noticing the truth about adjusting.
So sounds like there's some part of you that wouldn't want to be adjusted. Maybe there's some pain in that for you.
Yeah. It's like preemptively protecting myself.
So when you are aware of your impact and you hold back, it feels like you're preemptively rejecting yourself.
Not hold back, but adjust.
Adjust. Yeah. Cool. So in about 10 seconds, we're going to bring that to a close.
Yeah.
And I just want to check if there's anything else you want to say to me or to the group later.
Not just this one.
Okay, thanks for being.
Thanks.
So, you're welcome to stay here or go back to your.
Thanks.
So, what did you all notice in terms of examples of 1, 2, or 3?
I noticed that you jumped right in with how she seemed happy, like right from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. And which channels out?
Second.
Cool. Yeah. What else did you all notice?
Can you paraphrase that, man?
Channel 1. Liz, you look confused.
No, I know, okay. I noticed actually a progression and then back up and then back down. Yeah, so you started with scenes, which was the how, and then you went back to the what,
Yes.
and then you reflected. You did back to how, so that you noticed she looked up, and it was the how, and then you went. And you kind of dove in. There was one point when you mentioned sadness, and I imagine you were like, you were doing 3 and why, what kind of person would do this, and then you reflected that.
And that's when I said, so the way I set up the level 3, I did. I don't do it literally anymore, but
Okay.
I could have said, what kind of being? So or I imagine.
Yeah.
You could frame a channel 3 with the word scene. But for now, let's not. So for at level 3, it's more like what I'm getting about you, or I imagine, or I have a story that you are blah, 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 or I'm guessing that da, da, da. And that was when I did, I imagine you're a person who's aware of their surroundings. Was that clear when I went to the channel 3? No?
No, but I also don't want to stop the flow. And I have a question about something that might have been all three, so.
Ask the question.
So, I think at one point you said, let me also just acknowledge I didn't get a lot of sleep, so I don't feel super sharp when I do it again. I feel a bit woozy, so I want to just acknowledge that. I felt like there was a moment where you said something to her like, it seems like maybe a part of you might not want that.
Yes, at least part of you doesn't want to have to adjust. Well, I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
hold back, and she
Yeah.
corrected it was adjust.
Yeah. So was that a 2 or a 3?
Yeah, good question.
Or
That was more a 1.
okay.
It was a paraphrasing of what she had described with a little bit more from me.
Mm-hmm.
A level 3 at that point would have been, I imagine that you're someone who likes doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't like doing this. It's kind of obvious to say that, but that would be a level 3. Or I imagine you're someone who likes to be free, and that's why. That's the why she doesn't like to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Any more examples stand out? Anybody have questions Or anybody have like a moment where you're like, oh, there's that channel 2 happening, or oh, there's channel 3.
And a comment.
Yes.
One of my other favorite ways to ask why is to actually ask the person what kind of creature.
Yes.
That it's like a gentle one. It's like, what kind of creature would, and often you'll get an answer.
Yeah. I usually ask it internally, and you can also ask it explicitly. What kind of a person are you who would not want to be adjusting yourself? So that would access your motivation or a deeper level of experience. Any questions or comments? And I just want to hear a little bit more from you. How was it for you to get up here?
So I find it really easy to drop in with you. Like almost in my first circle and all of my like really juicy circles, you've been in or leading. So if I find that.
It's true.
Right? Yeah. So what if you guys want this from me? I'm like, oh, totally. But it was I felt really, really connected with you. And then there was like a bit of like a vulnerable naked sense being in a room of people that I didn't, like I wasn't quite so connected with the rest of you. And so I kind of felt like, it was like, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous from having, it's so easy for me to drop in with you.
Yeah.
On how that be kind of in front of everyone. And to clarify, I quite enjoy being here. So,
Yeah. Hope things again for coming.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to do a little more theory. What is level 4? What is level 4? I look at my phone. Yes. Channel 4 is identity. Channel 5 is revealing. Channel 6 is desire. Channel 7 is the group. Channel 8 is chronology. And channel 9 is experiments, including a frequent one, which is touch. And then 9 is kind of like a bonus. I'm not really going to go into that one now. So, in the channel of revealing, and the way that I work in a circle, or that I used to when this wasn't, when I was still sort of using this as a conscious model, is as I was circling someone, I would sort of be like, okay, which channel? Oh, I didn't do that channel. It's like turning the dial. Turn the channel here. I'm seeing your what? And if I turn the channel, oh, I put on different glasses, or I turn the channel, oh, there's all your how. Oh, there's the why. And if I keep clicking around, it's like different slices of that moment, different ways of looking at what's going on. And these are all, obviously, these are resources of information to bring into a circle. Right? So the level of identity, that's where I go when I imagine being you. And I access anything about your experience. It could be a what, a how, or a why. I will often say this in circling, when I imagine being you, and then usually we'll access a channel 3, but it could be anything. The point I'm trying to make about the identity is that it's not like channels 1, 2, and 3, where I'm over here and I'm observing and interacting with something that you're expressing. It's me over there imagining being you and accessing what I can from that place. And then Decker has an even deeper cut on that. He doesn't imagine being you, he lets himself be you, right? Or he is you. That's in his languaging, which is actually, don't even imagine being that person, just allow yourself to be that. It's not a skill everybody can do, but it's included in this channel for me, and I wanted to name it. The next channel is Biggie. 1 through 4 are a lot about the circling. Channel 5 is a lot about me. That's where I get to reveal my experience as a circler. And there's 2 kinds of revealing. We talk a lot about sharing impact in circling. You know, sitting here, and I didn't do any of that with Kat on purpose. There was a lot happening for me, but I didn't say anything because I just wanted to highlight 1, 2, and 3. But I might have said, wow, seeing your face do that, I notice I feel sad. Or I'm feeling more trust when I hear you acknowledge that piece, what's happening to you. Anything in my experience that happens as a result of being impacted would be there. There's another one that we don't really talk about, which I'm calling proactive disclosure. You'll see somebody start a circle, and before, if I'm circling Jess, before I even start circling Jess, I might say, I notice that I'm really anxious. A lot of sensation in my body, and it's been there all day and it's still here right now. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. That's not the impact of being with her, it's me. So I wanted to just distinguish between these 2 kinds of sharing and revealing. Does that make sense, the difference?
What did you write?
Proactive disclosure. And I like that. This was a new term that I came up with, so I feel proud of myself. And it's a good distinction, I think. Because it's not, I really support people in revealing a lot more in circling. And if you're only sharing impact, you don't have as much chance to reveal as if you also do proactive disclosure. The desire is, what is the circle you want? And what do I want as a circler? So it's the channel of desire. Have I checked in with the circler about what they want? Have I checked in with myself about where is my greatest curiosity or interest or want? Both of those are very valid in the circler. We don't ask the circler what they want in order to give it to them. We ask the circler what they want in order to get in the world. We may or may not move in the direction of giving it to them. So there's a whole channel here of desire. And then me as the circler, I get to follow my desire and my interests. There's a whole teaching piece on how to do that without agenda and without coaching, fixing, and change, but that's another discussion. The group, that's obvious. We access the channel of the group. Who here would like to share how it is to be with AJ? You know? Or, hey, John, I noticed that you just had a big sigh when Jeff shared that. Curious to hear what's happening to you. So the group channel. And chronology. Chronology is the sequence of what happened when it happened. It's the chain of events as it occurs in time. And the channel of chronology is like taking a step back and looking at the circle. What's happened so far? What are the main highlights? What are the peaks and valleys? And it requires a lot of tracking to remember. And that's a skill that takes a lot of practice and becomes easy for some people and more challenging for other people. But when I'll pause a circle and I'll say, okay, I want to just check in with you because at the beginning you were talking about this, and then Jess threw up over there in the corner, and then I started crying, and then you were talking about your leg, and I'm realizing that we got distracted at that point because AJ threw his glasses against the wall, and I want us all to just reconnect with ourselves as I iterate and find out what's most alive for you right now. If I did something like that, it would be a chronology. It'd be like, another word is a summary of what's happened so far. And the thing I didn't really do was, I kind of did it with these 3, I want to talk about the value of this one and the value of this one, although we only have 2 minutes.
I want to hear about the value of chronology though.
Okay.
I think chronology for me is like one of the, like it's abstract, so it's kind of hard to just hear about, but it's one of the most valuable things to be able to see like, wait a minute, when that happened, when this happened, this surprising thing happened, it's like there's a lot of gold there.
Cool. I love chronology too. So in my experience, Liz,
Yes.
chronology is a way to let the circle know, hey, I've been paying attention. I've been here. I've seen you. I've been watching.
Yeah.
It creates the connection and rapport that's essential for circle. It's also useful for me to access my desire. Because I say, if I'm circling you, I'm like, Liz, I just want to tell you, let's just pause for a second. I haven't been able to hear a single thing you said for the last 3 minutes, because right before that, John coughed, and then right before that, Jess said, hey, I love you. And I'm still interested in what happened when Jess said, hey, I love you. If I do something like that, I'm able to, if I track the chronology, I can track where was my desire, my interest, my curiosity about. Where did I want to follow? So it supports me in following my desire. It supports the connection with the circle lead. And anybody else want to add what's another value of it? Do you have another one, Pete?
The only thing that's coming to mind off the top here is just that, like, I find a lot of dissonance in chronology often. Like, in the things that happen in the order they happen in, it's like weird, and so that's why there's value there.
Like you said, you were excited to talk about that, and then I realized we just talked about something else. So, I'm curious about how that happened. So, in the last minute, I want to say that I am sharing the channels again because I think it's a useful way to structure and organize the things that happen or that could happen in a circle. And that every technique that we teach in circling can fit with one of these channels and may be easier accessed and easier organized if you can fit it into the channels. And similarly, as you circle, after you circle, maybe you pull out this list of 9 channels and you just look through and say, oh my God, I didn't access my own desire the whole time, or ask the circle me what they wanted the whole time. Not that you have to, but just being aware of what you chose and didn't choose to do. And maybe next time we'll go into a circle and say, the place I really want to work out my abilities and stretch is, I'm going to be really tuned into my desire in the circle. So, any last questions? AJ?
Can you say something even in short about experiments?
Experiments are when we deviate from the pure format of circling, and we do so with explicit acknowledgement and explicit permission from the circler. And that's a whole range of things that we can do in a circle. But we don't go with that until the basics are really nailed down. Makes sense? Okay. I would love to hear from 2 of you. If this was valuable to you, and how so, if so.
May I just ask something? I think I just lost 7.
Group.
Like, what did you say?
Just when you get the input from the group members, the other group members in the circle.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
It was super valuable for me. I haven't been trained in circling. I've been circling with a group for a year, and very present in it, and have a sense a little bit. And it's just like, it's like a map that affirms what I already know and calls out some other things. And I just I haven't ever sort of got to know anything about you, and so it's, both of those have been valuable on leading into T3. So, thank you.
Thank you. Glad to hear that. One more. Pete.
From from very, like, since I first met you, I've always been impressed by, like, the detail and acuity that you bring to your, like, circling theory, and it's always been helpful to clarify for me, so that's how I'm feeling right now, but I'm not ashamed. Like, I feel like there's not that much additional information in my brain, like data, but it's much better organized now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. And because it's better organized, do you think that would accelerate your growth as a circle?
Totally.
Same, awesome. Well, it's time. We're a little bit over, but I haven't heard anybody else know about. Let's bring it close. Do you have something, Rusty?
I would actually really like what sorry, I forgot. I don't know. Yeah, great unpacking and structural mapping of a fluid process, which is great for left-right brain integration. I like it.
Cool.